Sorry about that. My daughter came in. Just insanity. He was taken in the back by some mad force and driven into the shelter on his face, slammed down into the pine branches of his bed. At the same time, the wind tore at the fire and sprayed red coals and sparks in a cloud around him. Then it backed out, seemed to hesitate momentarily, and returned with a massive roar, a roar that took his ears, mind, and body. He was whipped against the front wall of the shelter like a rag, felt a ripping pain in his ribs again, then was hammered back down in the sand once more while the wind took the whole wall, his bed, the fire, his tools, all of it, and threw it out onto the lake, gone out of sight, gone forever. He felt a burning on his neck and reached up to find red coals there. He brushed those off, found more in his pants, brushed those away, and the wind hit again, heavy gusts, tearing gusts. He heard trees snapping in the forest around the rock, felt his body slipping out, and clawed at the rocks to hold himself down. He couldn't think, just held and knew that he was praying, but didn't know what the prayer was. Knew that he wanted to be, stay be, and then the wind moved to the lake. Brian heard the great roaring, sucking sounds of the water and opened his eyes to see the lake torn by the wind, the water slamming in great waves that went in all ways, fought each other, and then rose into the spot of water going up in the night sky like a wet column of light. It was a beautiful and terrible time at the same time. The tornado tore one more time at the shore on the opposite side of the lake. Brian could hear the trees being ripped down, and then it was done, gone as rapidly as it had come. It left nothing but Brian in the pitch dark. He could find nothing of where his fire had been, not a spark, nothing of his shelter, tools, or bed. Even the body of the fool bird was gone. I am back to nothing, he thought. Trying to find things in the dark, back to where I was when I crashed. Hurt in the dark, just the same. As if to emphasize his thoughts, the mosquitoes with the fire gone and protection smoke no longer saving him came back in thick, nostril-clogging swarms. All that was left was the hatchet at his belt, still there. But now it began to rain, and in the downpour he could never find anything dry enough to get a fire going. And at last he pulled his battered body back in under the overhang where his bed had been and wrapped his arms around his ribs. Sleep couldn't come with the insects ripping at him, so he lay the rest of the night slapping mosquitoes and chewing with his mind on the day. The morning he had been fat, well, almost fat and happy, sure of everything, with good weapons, food, sun in his face, and things looking good for the future. And inside one day, just one day, he had been run over by a moose and a tornado, had lost everything, and was back to square one, just like that. A flip of some giant coin, and he was the loser. But there's a difference now, he thought. There really is a difference. I might be hit, but I'm not done. When the light comes, I'll start to rebuild. I still have the hatchet, and that's all I had in the first place. Come on, he thought, baring his teeth in the darkness. Come on. Is that the best you can do? Is that all you can hit me with? A moose and a tornado? Well, he thought, holding his ribs and smiling, then spitting mosquitoes out of his mouth. Well, that won't get the job done. That was the difference. He had changed, and he was tough. I'm tough where it counts. Tough in the head. In the end, right before dawn, a kind of cold snap came down. Something else knew this cold snap, and the mosquitoes settled back into the damp grass and under the leaves, and he could sleep or doze. And the last thought he had that morning as he closed his eyes, I hope the tornado hit the moose. When he was awake and the sun was cooking the inside of his mouth and had dried his tongue to leather. He had fallen into a deeper sleep with his mouth open just at dawn, and it tasted as if he had been sucking on his foot all night. Gross. He rolled out and almost bellowed with pain from his ribs. They had tightened in the night and seemed to pull at his chest when he moved. He slowed his movements and stood slowly, without stretching unduly, and went to the lake for a drink. At the shore he kneeled carefully and with great gentleness and drank and rinsed his mouth. To his right he saw that the fish pond was still there, although the willow gate was gone and there was no fish. They'll come back, he thought. As soon as I can make a spear or a bow and get one or two for bait, they'll come back. He turned to look at his shelter, saw that some of the food for the wall was scattered around the beach, but was still there. Then he saw his bow jammed into a driftwood log, broken, but with the precious string still intact. Not so bad. It's not so bad. He looked down the shoreline for other parts of his wall, and that's when he saw it. What's out there? What do you think he sees? Out in the lake, in the short part of the L, something curved and yellow was sticking 6 or 8 inches out of the water. It was a bright color, not an earth or natural color, and for a second he couldn't place it. And then he knew what it was. It's the tail of the plane. He said it aloud, half expecting to hear somebody answer him. There it was, sticking up out of the water. The tornado must have flipped the plane around somehow when it hit the lake, changed the position of the plane, and raised the tail. Well, he thought, well, just look at that. At the same moment, a cutting thought hit him. He thought of the pilot, still in the plane. And that brought a shiver and massive sadness that seemed to settle on him like a weight. And he thought that he should say or do something for the pilot, some words, but he didn't know any of the right words, the religious words. So he went down to the side of the water and looked at the plane and focused his mind the way he did when he was hunting the fool birds and wanted to concentrate. And focused it on the pilot and thought, have rest forever. All right, that was a pretty good chapter. So he gets hit with a moose, and then a tornado comes through and rips through all of his things. We only have 3 chapters left in the book, so stay tuned. All right, guys, see you soon. Bye.